You've been warned.
You've been warned, everybody. Welcome, everybody. And I want to welcome, of course, everybody who's here in person, as well as our many, many friends on Zoom. I don't know if you can hear me because I'm standing a little bit far away for the introduction, but
Getting lots of waves.
lots of waves. Excellent. Waving back. So the important thing is that you hear these guys. So, but welcome. It's a lovely day and lovely to have everybody here. We have a couple upcoming events to mention very briefly. And I think it was obvious, but we are recording this for everyone to know, and this will be available on our YouTube channel after the event and can be shared from there. So upcoming events that we're very excited about. So tomorrow at 5 o'clock, we are partnering with the Outpost Foundation. The event will take place at the Prospect Coffee House in North Bennington. And Outpost is a wonderful new residency for creative writers of color, and it is hosted in southern Vermont. So the writers themselves can come from anywhere in the Americas. And we will have two wonderful writers who will be sharing their work, Ozen Amadi and Bruna Dantes Lovato. So that is tomorrow at 5 o'clock over in North Bennington. And then on Thursday, October 12th at 6 o'clock here at the bookstore, we will be welcoming novelists Genevieve Plunkett and Richard Mirabella. We'll be sharing their new novels. Genevieve happens to be local. She's a Bennington, Vermont person. So that's October 12th. Now, I think a number of you have heard me introduce James before. We are so lucky to have hosted James for several book launches. We've launched his two previous best-selling anthologies of poetry, The Path to Kindness and How to Love the World. And of course, it's a special treat for us to be launching tonight, The Wonder of Small Things, Poems of Peace and Renewal. And we are launching it on what is actually the International Day of Peace. So that was just fortuitous when we looked at the calendar and we were like, that seems to feel pretty good. So of course, it's a pleasure to welcome James back to the bookstore, but also to welcome his friend and fellow poet, Rosemerry Wahtola Trommer, who has traveled from Colorado to be with us tonight. Welcome, Rosemerry. Rosemerry is the co-host of the Emerging Form podcast on creative process, the co-founder of Secret Agents of Change, and co-leader of the Soul Writers Circle. Her poetry has appeared on A Prairie Home Companion, PBS NewsHour, O Magazine, American Life and Poetry, and on stage at Carnegie Hall. She is a storyteller, teacher, and performer of poetry. Her most recent book, published this spring, is All the Honey, Beneath All Appearances and Unwavering Peace, which is a book for grieving parents and was published by Samara Press. So please join me in welcoming both James and Rosemerry to Battenkill Books.
Well, we are so excited to be with you tonight. This is such a treat. Thank you all so much for coming out on such a lovely evening here in, I almost said Vermont. It's Vermont, New York in my mind. We're at the crossroads here. And I want to start off with a poem that's not in the anthology. It's a newer poem. And I sort of want to have a theme of wonder, peace. It's also apparently World Gratitude Day. Also, miniature golf day. It is the Pecan Sandy Day. So it's a very busy day for all of us. Oh, it's National Chai Day. Yeah.
And Escapology Day.
National Escapology today, so you can get in touch with your inner Houdini and release yourself from any chains while you listen to us read poetry and share our work. So this one is a newer poem, and I'll just say it to you all. And this one is called The World Loves You Back. Even if no one ever touched you with the tenderness you once needed, believe that the world's been holding you in its arms ever since the day you were born. even if no one ever touched you with the tenderness you once needed. Believe that the world's been holding you in its arms ever since the day you were born. You are not an afterthought or accident. Let rain on the roof remind you. Let sun on the skin or the neon orange of a Mexican sunflower at which a hummingbird pauses to drink. There are so many ways to hold and be held, and you could spend your whole life tallying them up without ever reaching the end of the list. So we're here to celebrate the wonder of small things, and it's been a joy to live in the space of wonder and kindness, which was my book that came out earlier this year. Last year was a very difficult year for me. I lost my mother, who died very early at the age of 64. I lost both grandmothers, all in the space of about 6 months. And these books really saved my life. Really kept me sane and present to the world around me. And so I'm just very grateful to be here celebrating them with all of you. I'm gonna reluctantly advance us into winter with this poem. Just come with me for a moment. And this one was written during an ice storm last year. It's on page 9 for anyone who's following along here or at home. This one is called Awe. It's a shiver that climbs the trellis of the spine, each tingle a bright white morning glory breaking into blossom beneath the skin. It can happen anywhere, anytime. Even finding the sleeve of ice worn by a branch all morning, now fallen on a bed of snow. You can choose to pause, pick it up, hold the cold thing in your hand, or not. Few tell us that wonder and awe are decisions we make daily, hourly, minute by minute in the tiny offices of the heart. Tilting the head to look up at every tree turned into a chandelier by light, striking the ice in just the right way.
I think we'll go back and forth, just back and forth, Ashley. It's such a joy to be here with you. Thank you, friends, for coming, and thank you for hosting us. Hi, everybody. I'm mine. I thought I'd start with a poem in honor of World Gratitude Day, not by me, but a poet who I'm deeply grateful for, Gerard Manley Hopkins, who was one of the first poets who I fell in love with and understood that poetry could be play. And it could just be sounds, words, having a really good time together. And, you know, this greater meaning too. So he was a Jesuit priest in the 1900s. And this is a poem of his that, well, I loved so much that I created posters of it, and I've done all kinds of things with it. It's called, hello, Hide Beauty. Glory be to God for dappled things, for skies of coupled color as a brinded cow, for rose moles in all stipple upon trout that swim, for fire-cold chestnut falls, finches' wings, for fields plotted and pieced, fold, fallow, and plow, and all trades their gear and tackle and trim, whatever is counter, original, spare, strange, fickle, freckled, who knows how, with swift, sour, sweet, slow, a dazzle, dim, he fathers forth whose beauty is past change. Praise him, Hopkins, I think so many of my favorite poets also have loved him. I think, he's just had a way of he gets in you, even so it's not easy to understand his poems right off the bat. The more you read them and the more your mouth just has a really good time when you say them. And then I thought in honor of International Peace Day, one of the countries that has inspired me most about peace and what it is to be a peaceful country and how it is to really hold on to peace is Finland. That's where my family is from. And I wanted to share this poem. I suppose it's about how we hold on to things and how we let go. And I thought that I would also start and end the poem with a song by Sibelius. I mentioned John Sibelius in the poem. He is a composer and a Finnish composer. And the song that I'm singing is in Finnish, but it's not their national anthem, but it's like their national song. And it talks about what it was for the Finns when they were fighting with the Soviet Union, Russia at the time, and became and won, and how Finland stood up to retain this, but what it was like for them to be at war, and then as they say in the song, that their morning has come and that they've become such a peaceful nation. And I think a example to a lot of countries about how to live then peacefully. So I'll start and end the poem with this song by Sibelius. Oi Suomi katso sinun päiväs koittaa, unukka karkoitettu on jo pois. Ja mun kielu kirkaudessa soittaa, kuin itse taivaan kansi sois. Kun valataan mun valkeus jo voittaa, sun päiväs koittaa, voi sunnuin maan. If I am to hold the world in my heart, then let me hold it the way leaves hold sunshine, trapping the energy not for the sake of holding it, but to transform it into nourishment. Though the process isn't simple, it's common. All around the globe, in every season, leaves hold and synthesize whatever the day gives them. On a day when the energy of the world seems too much to hold, let me bid my heart turn like a leaf to the sun and make sugar. The way Rilke turned grief into sonnets. The way Sibelius turned war into song. Oi nousi Suomi nosta korkealle, päässä pelymä suurten muistojen. Oi nouse Suomi, näytit maailmalle, sä että karkoitit orjuuden. Ja että taipunut sosoron alle, on aamus alkanut sunnuin maan. Right, he made that out of war. He made that.
Are we allowed to make requests of each other? So I have a request for you. I have a poem I want to hear.
Okay.
I just turned to this one and there are also in this book reflective pauses. A lot of you probably know how I put anthologies together, and these are kind of writing prompts, ways to dig a little deeper into the poem, let it spark some writing in a journal or, writing for yourself. And I came across this this little poem called The Honeybee. And I just thought, wow, what a great example of choosing peace, especially in the crucible that married life can sometimes be. So this is called The Honeybee by Jacqueline Jules. I almost reacted, almost questioned how he could dare complain about more pots to wash when I cooked all afternoon. Sound familiar? Then I remembered the honeybee, how it dies a gruesome death when its stinger embeds in human skin. The bee tears a hole in its belly, pulling out a sack of venom. A honeybee values peace. It only stings when threatened, not over something as petty as who cooked and who cleaned up. And certainly not when it could rest, like I am right now, with feet up on the couch, while my honey loads the dishwasher and scrubs every. Very close to home.
Lots of smiles from our
Yeah,
extended audience.
I bet. Smiles of recognition. I'll also read this one. I love this poem, and a lot of you probably know Maggie Smith, who wrote Keep Moving, You Could Make This Place Beautiful, the memoir. This is one of her poems from the book Good Bones originally. And this is called First Fall. This is on page 23. I'm your guide here. In the evening dark, morning streets, I point and name. Look, the sycamores, their mottled paint by number bark. Look, the leaves rusting and crisping at the edges. I walk through Schiller Park with you on my chest. Stars smolder well into daylight. Look, the pond, the ducks, the dogs paddling after their prized sticks. Fall is when the only things you know, because I've named them, begin to end. Soon I'll have another season to offer you. Frost soft on the window and a porthole side there. Ice sleeving the bare gray branches. The first time you see something die, you won't know, it might come back. I'm desperate for you to love the world because I brought you here.
Yeah, I love that poem. And that whole idea of how we long to share the beauty of the world with each other.
And you can't share the beauty without acknowledging that it ends and it changes.
Ends and it changes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess with that in mind, maybe I'll do this one that I wrote for my daughter. She's 15 now. And it's called Evolution. Oh, here we are back in winter.
I know, what's happening.
Sorry. Evolution. We drove 7 hours and half the time it snowed. So I kept my eyes fixed to the slushy road, but there was the moment when I looked at my girl in the passenger seat and fell in love in an instant and stroked her hair. And she, catching my gaze, offered me her open hand. For this moment, the first tetrapods evolved in shallow and swampy freshwater. For this moment, the ichthyostega formed arms and finger bones. And though it took 30 million years of primate and Homo sapien changes in facial muscles and the cingulate cortex of the brain, for this moment, we learned to smile. And by special request, this is a poem. So I'll say about this book, All the Honey is it's a collection that came about because the publisher said, we'd like to do a book. When they contacted me at that point, it was just, maybe 4 or 5, 6 months after my son had taken his life. He was just about 17. And at that time, I've been writing poems every day since 2006. And had taken a break right after he died. I wasn't able to write poems anymore. And then the poems that I started writing after he died, of course, were very steeped in grief. And then after, when they said, what kind of book would you like to do? And I said, well, it seems too soon to do a book of poems about grief. I have all these other poems about falling in love with the world, but it seemed disingenuous also to have a book that was about that without honoring what was really going on in my life. And they said, well, could you do a book with both? And I said, huh. And I tried to picture the book that would have, a poem about Mr. Clean showing up in my kitchen to seduce me, and the 2 days after my son died in the same spine. And I thought, wow. And I said, I'll think about it, which meant no. But that is what happened with this book. It is a book that reaches towards both sides about the absolute ecstasy of life. Having my daughter reach out her hand and falling completely in love. And it also is a book about how difficult it's been to meet grief. And so this is a poem that really touches, I suppose, on, in a way, both. Watching my friend pretend her heart isn't breaking. On Earth, just 1 teaspoon of neutron star would weigh 6 billion tons. 6 billion tons is the equivalent of every animal on Earth, including the insects, times 3. 6 billion tons sounds impossible until I consider what it is to swallow grief. Just 1 teaspoon, and one may as well have consumed a neutron star. How dense it is, how it carries inside it the memory of collapse. How difficult it is to move them. How impossible to believe anything could ever lift that weight. There are many reasons to treat each other with great tenderness. One is the sheer miracle we are alive together on a planet surrounded by dying stars. And another, none of us can see what anyone else has swallowed.
Yeah, I love that poem. Many people love that poem too. And traveled very far. So I want to share one of the lovely things about putting these anthologies together is including people you know. And there are several people besides Rosemerry in this room right now who have poems in this anthology. So if I'm not embarrassing them, I would like to share those poems. So this one is by Rachel Michaud. And that's her cheering technique. This is called Crossing Over. This is on page 41. Did I tell you your eyes are mirrors? I see who I could be. Did I tell you your eyes are windows, world where I could go? What is it about your smile? What is it about your laughter? What is it about you that shatters me? You hold me like a newborn, tell a bedtime story. When we rock, who is the boat and who is the sea? True to form, everything is making me want to cry.
Don't do this to me.
I know. Eve was apologizing for her intensity earlier, and my intensity is that I make people want to cry, including myself. Possibly in a good way.
Some tissues.
I know, that's a good idea.
I'll do that next time.
So my readings on Zoom and in person should come with a 2 Kleenex boxes minimum. I think it means we're just paying attention. And so this next one is by Michelle Wiegers, who is also here. Do you want to wave at her? There's Michelle. And this one is called Slow Down. And I love that the poem enacts what it's talking about. It just makes you slow down. So why don't you- Slow down. This morning, I'm so tired from pushing myself hard that as I drive down this country road, I can't bring myself to go anywhere close to the speed limit. I feel like a silver-haired lady peeking over my steering wheel as I creep along, letting the cars whiz by me. I always assume the elderly go slowly because they're cautious, not wanting to hit anyone or miss the ambulance racing down the road with the siren blaring. But maybe they've figured out a secret I'm still trying to learn. What if driving slowly is the only way to live my best life? To keep from running so fast that I go right past myself, running by the small child inside who seeks to fill herself with wonder, passing up the chance for rest, for play, to slow myself long enough to notice how pleasant the rain sounds dripping onto the roof of the house next door. Tiny, wet whispers tapping those few remaining leaves clinging to the maple in my backyard. An almost silent thrumming slowing down my weary soul. The steady chime of church bells ringing in the distance in this moment, reminding me I've already been given all that I need.
Michelle, I love that poem so much, and I aspire to that poem. And I'm going to read a poem about all the ways that I am absolutely not that person, and why I need a little more Michelle in me. This poem, I live in a river canyon, and in Southwest Colorado. This is traveling the same road. You idiot, is what you say to the driver 5 cars ahead of you on the 2-lane road that winds through the river canyon. There is no passing lane, and you feel the crush of the minutes as they rub against each other, while the white SUV 5 cars ahead does not pull over at the wide spot in the road where all conscientious slow drivers know to pull over to let the other drivers pass. Idiot, you grumble and you miss any beauty happening outside the window. Red rock cliffs and diamonding streams, focused as you are on the speedometer, the brake. Once it was you, a girl of 15, who drove so cautiously the winding roads to church on Sunday morning, that first day with your driver's permit. And who was it in the long line of cars behind you who called the police to report a drunk driver? When the police pulled you over, not 1 but 2 squad cars with their blaring red and blue lights, you didn't cry when the officers laughed. There was warmth in their relief to find out you were not drunk but young. No, you cried all the way to mass Bless them, the irate ones, the ones who fume in the back, the ones who think furious thoughts. Oh, that's right. Bless yourself. You, the livid one, who even now is hurling names at the other travelers on the same paved path. Settle in. 16 miles under the speed limit. We'll give you time to think about how we are all traveling the same winding road, no matter which route we take, all of us pilgrims journeying toward a generous, elusive grace.
I wish I could relate. Call anyone a name.
I've never called anybody an idiot. Yeah, so as usual, I'm gonna just read your poem over and over. I'm gonna like tape it, I think, into my wall, in my window in my car.
I very much relate to yours. Rosemerry.
You do? Oh, okay, you've got that one too.
See, I hadn't learned it yet. It says in the poem. I'm still learning.
Oh, okay. And this is one of the most beautiful things I think about poetry as a practice, whether it's reading practice or a writing practice, is that the poems allow us to continually see the world in a new way, and they invite us through metaphor to reframe the moment again and again and again. The moment is a door, the moment is a bird, the moment is a bell, all these, we can see it in these ways. I think that practice then helped me more than I can say after my son died. And this poem is about one of the most essential reframings that happened. The invitation. 2 nights after he died, all night, I heard the same one-line story on repeat. I am the woman whose son took his life. The words felt full of self-pity, filled me with hopelessness, doom. And then a voice came, a woman's voice, just before dawn. And it gave me a new shade of truth. I am the woman who learns how to love him now that he is gone. It did not change the facts, but it changed everything about how I met the facts. Over 100 days later, 2 years later, I'm still learning what it means to love him. How love is an ocean, a wildfire, a crumb. How commitment to love changes me, changes everyone, invites us to bring our best. Love is wine, is trampoline, is an infinite song with a chorus in which I am sung. I am the woman who learns how to love him now that he is gone. May I always be learning how to love. Like a cave, like a rough-legged hawk, like a sun.
I'm gonna go get those tissues.
Here. Oh, thank you. Thank you. By the way, you don't need to worry about me. I'm really okay with crying.
As are we.
I think we've learned as poets that it comes with the territory. And I think I just want to touch on what Rosemerry was saying, that idea of the love being the invitation and love changing over time for the people who are no longer in our lives. And I think about that very much with the people I've lost, and I lost my father over 20 years ago and feel more in touch with him than ever. And there's a poem in here that I want to share. That's sort of about a yearly ritual. Every summer I wait for the tomatoes to come in and ripen, and always have a tomato in honor of my dad because he loved tomatoes so much, so very much. And actually, there's a whole tomato theme in this. So I realized this. I recorded the audio for the book a few months back, and even the sound people, like the audio engineers, were like, "Wow, you really had a thing for the tomato." It's like 6 or 7 poems in a row you have to do with tomatoes. Yeah, I'm a little obsessed, apparently.
It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, that's right. So this one is called Tomatoes. When I bite, oh, I'm sorry, this is on page 76. Nobody wants to know. When I bite into the bruise-colored flesh of this heirloom tomato, known as a Cherokee purple, I'm transported back to the dirt road that ran along the Merrimack River, where my father pulled over at the farm stand, then stepped out of the truck, brushed for a moment in gravel dust, suspended in the sun. He came back grinning, gripping a bag of homegrown beef steaks so fat they were already bursting their juices through the brown paper, running down his long gone hands, which I am reaching out to touch again before he turns the key in the ignition, begging him not to go, not just yet, as I salt the next slice. And this next one is a love poem. I write a lot of those. And this is for my husband, who is also a farmer. And this one was actually written last summer. We went on what I felt was a much deserved vacation and promptly got COVID. And so had to drive 7.5 hours back from Canada with COVID. And then luckily, after quite a long time, we both had recovered. And this was one of those moments when, after a difficult time, maybe after a surgery or illness or something has passed, every little thing seems precious again. And so this one is called Here With You. It's too hot on this August afternoon to move from our places on the couch, even to slice the peach still waiting on the counter for the kiss of the knife. A different kind of hunger keeps me here with you, rubbing the fine hairs on your arms that have turned blonde after all those hours in the sun, and which are just now catching the light, spinning it into gold I want to touch over and over, never once having dreamed I'd ever be this rich.
So I think I'll read 2 more poems and then we'll just have a conversation and open it up for questions, comments, if you wanted to, I don't know, whatever feels right to us at that point.
Or any other requests. We're like musicians.
Right. Okay, because of James's tomato poem, I thought I'd read a peach poem. I think one of the sweet things too about writing poems is they just absolutely require that you slow down. And I don't know about you, but I have a hard time with that sometimes. I just do and do. And there's so many fun things to do, or things that just have to be done. At last, after a week, at last, the peaches on the counter smell like peaches. Their sweet summer scent reaching across the room to where I sit, trying to balance numbers. The scent is like a flirty lover who won't take no for an answer, who trails fingertips down my cheek and neck and lightly tugs at my collar and then tilts my head back to whisper into my ear, "Isn't there something you would rather be doing, my dear?" And damn if I'm not distracted and hungry, and all I want is to sink my teeth into peach. And so that is what I do. So much of life feels like letting go, but tonight life says, pick me up, sweetheart. Take me in, and the gold sticky juice runs all over those numbers. I lick my fingers clean. And this one is in James's anthology. It's such a beautiful book, friends. If you don't have it yet, I think they have a few. This poem also happens to be in All the Honey. Belonging. And if it's true, we are alone. We are alone together. The way blades of grass are alone but exist as a field. Sometimes I feel it, the green fuse that ignites us, the wild thrum that unites us, an inner hum that reminds us of our shared humanity. Just as 35 trillion red blood cells join in one body to become one blood, just as 136,000 notes make up one symphony, alone as we are, our small voices weave into the one big conversation. Our actions are essential to the one infinite story of what it is to be alive. When we feel alone, we belong to the grand communion of those who sometimes feel alone. We are the dust that hopes, a rising of dust, a thrill of dust, the dust that dances in the light with all the other dust. We are the dust that makes the world.
So any questions, comments? No pressure.
Absolutely pressure. Should totally ask this question.
We have different styles.
I love the juxtaposition of the tomato and the peach. That was really good. Really good.
Glad we brought it back to summer again.
Yeah, we had to. It had been, we'd gotten so many snowstorms in there.
I think you've got everybody feeling the notes I'm getting from online as everybody's feeling the feels right now.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'll have one. So it's really fun to see you together in different sides of the country. I just wonder what it can be related to the community that's in an anthology, community of poets, but I'm just curious about your experience of how connecting with other poets or interacting with other writers, how that influences your writing, how that shifts you, and maybe that's directly about the two of you, or maybe it's more broad about like how anthology sits with it itself.
I think it's everything, honestly. I mean, just being connected with the people who do the same thing that you do and that lights you up and that brings you alive. It's something that I think has totally changed my life, is feeling like a member of a larger community of artists and writers, and being able to bring those people together, but then also bring readers together to, maybe learn about a new poet that they hadn't heard of before. And in terms of us, I think we were just talking about this earlier. I connected with Rosemerry after I had done my first anthology, Healing the Divide, because I'd come across her work online and in other books, and I thought, how could I have left her out? She clearly belongs. And so we connected in that way. And then it's just been, you know, an ongoing connection from there. And then the pandemic happened and we did a lot of stuff online that was also about bringing people together.
Yeah, I think it's everything. I think that you know how there's collective nouns, there's a kettle of buzzards and a murder of crows and a charm of hummingbirds. And so I was always, what is it? What is it for poets? It could be cute, like a stanza of poets, or my friend David suggests it's a bankruptcy of poets. But I always think it's a communion of poets. I just feel like that it's an amazing thing to meet other poets who are also willing to what is it? A.R. Emmons says, sit alone in a room all day and pick away at your own liver. But more than that, you know, I think there's a willingness to be vulnerable that a lot of poets are willing to explore themselves and with each other. And I feel like the more we do that, the more that we trust that way of being in the world, that softened, vulnerable, open-hearted way of being. So many of the poets I know reflect that. You do, from what I've read of your work. And, you know, I think that having, certainly, you know, to have someone then like that we can talk to, whether it's in person, you know, or online, or just be a part of it. My goodness, hello everybody who's online there, this gorgeous communion of poets who, you know, this sense of, oh, look how connected we are, look how rich the world is and how difficult, and we can experience that together by touching the truth of what it is to be alive over and over and over again.
I have a great question from our online audience, which is sizable, I would say. So 2 questions that have to do with selecting poems. One is, when life is overwhelming, is there a poem that you all go to again and again? And then secondly, James, more for you, what moves you to select a certain poem? Because you sort of magically bring all of these beautiful anthologies together. What is the thing that moves the dial for you? How do you find these?
Poem that you've returned.
Two poems that I return to. One more recently is from Gregory Orr. Just the beginning of it is not to make loss beautiful, but to make loss the place where beauty starts, where the heart understands for the first time the nature of its journey. And that, thank you, Gregory Orr, for saving my life with that poem. And the other one that saved my life about 10 years ago for the first time, and has saved it almost every day since, is Rilke. You darkness that I come from, I love you more than all the fires that fence in the world. And that poem, that idea of falling in love with the darkness, was so revolutionary for me. And by the time he arrives at the end of the poem, he says, I have faith in nights. I have faith in nights. And that shifted me in the most profound way. How about you?
Yeah, lots of different poems. I mean, I think it depends on the time in life and what's going on, but old standbys for me are Marie Howe's The Gate, which is about the loss of her brother. She says, I have no idea that the gate I would step through to finally enter this world would be the space my brother's body made. You know, it goes on to talk about basically how he taught her that the ordinary world is what we're all waiting for. You know, she says toward the end, something like, you know, this is what you have been waiting for, he used to say to me. And I'd say, what? And he'd say, this, holding up my cheese and mustard sandwich. And I'd say, what? And he'd say, this, sort of looking around. So that's one. One that I like to recite to myself while I'm in airports and on planes is Patience by Kay Ryan.
Yeah.
Which starts, patience is wider than one once envisioned. She just goes on. It's such a lovely poem. And then to answer the question about how I choose the poems for the anthologies, I think the root word of anthology, isn't it bouquet? I believe
Well,
that's
that's
true.
really, that makes sense,
Yeah.
like anthem. Mhm.
Anther, yeah. So I think of it as a bouquet of poems that is a gift. You know, I mean, if you think about a bouquet, it's a gift that you bring to give someone, to offer someone, and it's a thing that makes your space more beautiful. And so that's what I'm always trying to look for. And that doesn't mean leaving out poems that dwell in grief or difficulty, because those can make our lives more beautiful and more real as well. And so that's what I'm looking for. And I think at the core of certain poems, or really anything that we read, sometimes you just come across things and it's like, ooh, this has human warmth. Like I can connect. There's that open door, that invitation. And so it's really difficult to put into words. There's just a certain magic that happens. And then I have a mind that's always making connections, which is why I end up with, 6 or 7 tomato poems. Oh, this one goes here, and this one connects to this one, and this one connects to this one. So I'm always looking for how poems speak to each other, because each one is this mysterious thing. It comes from within us. We don't really know always where it comes from or what brought it about. And so I think that poems are these mysteries that are speaking to each other.
And I'm just gonna add that you have ability to find poems that can be read on your first time. You can get something out of it, and the third, fourth, sixth, but on the first time you can already say yes. Like you find poems that have the door is already open to walk into. And I would say the other thing about your anthology friend is that I'm the kind of person who likes to just pick up a poem and a book and read wherever, but there is such a joy in reading this poem from cover to cover and really following the evolution and being in, for a moment in James Cruise's mind of how these things connect, and you can feel the connections, and it's exciting. It's exciting to read this book cover to cover.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Oh, wait, look what I said.
You blurbed the book too. She suddenly remembered.
I did just remember reading these poems is like being handed a bowl of ripe, sweet fruits. So enjoyable. And tomatoes. So enjoyable. So surprisingly different. So deeply nourishing.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
I wanted to thank you both. It's been such a treat, and I wasn't expecting to come here and cry the whole thing.
You're welcome.
And I also feel so much permission, just what you're just talking about, but also Rosemary, when you were saying about revisiting topics in different ways, because I've been struggling with, but hasn't, I just wrote a poem and that sounds like somebody else's poem, and I don't want to repeat what's already been said, and so there's the permission. And I did have a question that has just completely evaporated. Go to somebody else.
It's so true, though. If we tried to only write poems that hadn't been written already, we wouldn't write anything, right? I mean, I think that pretty much everything has been said, but there's this way that poetry invites us to add our one small voice to this big conversation, right? And to know that, how many moon poems have I written? But to take something like grief, and so many days I started with day grief is an eraser. I just literally, I would look around and whatever I saw, today grief is a window, today grief is an earthworm, you know, whatever. And I would just let that thing teach me something. I'd, you know, have a little interview with it kind of. Not so much that I was channeling it, but just really exploring what does this what does this piece of the world have to teach me about what I'm experiencing right now? And I feel like we do this, you know, thank God there's not just one grief poem, right? Because as you know, as I know, it changes from minute to minute for me, and whatever my experience is so different from your experience. And so thank God we have millions of grief poems, millions and millions and millions of love poems. Thank God we do.
That's so true. I remember what I was gonna ask. Actually, I have two requests. And I can't remember the name of either of these poems, but James, I was hoping you would read, I think it's a recent poem about the things people say. There's not enough of the platitudes and
Yes, I might have to find it. Yeah. Mhm.
Rosemerry, the one I like in the modern. I was reminded of it when you read it about the smile, as I picture her as just like a little toddler with bird around the tree.
Oh, and I know what book it's from. I don't have it with me,
Oh.
unfortunately.
Well, I love
Thank you. This. Yeah, I think it's in maybe
it just.
Naked for Tea. Oh, thank you.
I may not be able to find that. So I'm sorry.
We said we take requests, but
Yeah.
thank you though.
Well, shall we finish things up and you
And-
can,
More from here?
yeah, somebody in the back.
We have a question back here. And that is how you find a way to create a poem every day. You collect them and
How do I write a poem every day?
Yeah.
Oh, I sit down to a blank page every day. And I wait until something happens every day. Yeah. And I'm willing sometimes to sit for a very long time. And often because I write at night, I'm going to do an impersonation of myself writing poems. Sometimes they're written really through sleep, but yeah, every day I just wonder what's here now, and every poem I write starts with this question: what's the next true thing? And that honestly is the question I just asked the next line. What's the next true thing? What's the next true thing? And every single day, a whole poem is, whether it's 3 lines or 50, is built out of what's the next true thing.
finished. Done with the pencil.
Oh, you know, I play and play and play with them. Yeah. And I revise, you know, if it's going to make it into a book, then often they have been revised, but not always. And honestly, because I write every day, they are really not precious. I just thank them all for their service and move on, you know. And I think that, so if I'm going to, when the book comes out, I can take just my favorites, you know. And not that I love revising. Revising is fun. It's a whole different muscle than creating. Just, you know, and what if we take out this word, and what if we add this word, and what if we cut off the ending and add a different ending, and what, you know, what if we made it pentameter, and what, you know, like, it's just endless play. It's endless play. Thank you.
Can we close on a request? Is that possible? We can close with a reading. Are you open to reading one more? There is a request for Rosemerry to read Simple Tools on page 102.
Oh, I can do that.
You would oblige.
I can. Although I have something else. I have these little 3-line poems on rocks that are for you. I have them for Eve and for Connie and for Kate. So this one is for you, Eve. It's a song.
Oh, good.
deep desert canyon of the heart. Remember when you were ocean. Thank you. And this one's for you, Kate. Heaven, earth, this day a ladder. And this one is for my fellow Tigger / rabbit.
Which
We
will
have
not,
the same.
we're not gonna explain that.
They all know what we're saying.
And it also has this little tune. What if I can't do enough? I said. Love said. What if you don't try? Okay, and simple tools. This poem came about because my friend Christy Ashwanden said to me, you couldn't possibly write a poem about a rubber spatula. Simple tools. I am so grateful for the rubber spatula. The way it sits quietly in the drawer, yet is always ready for action, is game to scrape the walls of the blender or to fold chocolate chips into dough. It evens and swirls the frosting on cake and welcomes the tongue of a child. In a sharp world, it knows the value of being blunt. It knows that to smooth is a gift to the world. Some people are knives and I thank them. Me, I want to belong to the order of spatulas. Those who blend, who mix, who commingle dissimilars to create a cohesive whole. I want to spread sweetness, to be a workhorse for beauty. I want to stir things up, to clean things out. I want to be useful, an instrument of unity, a means, a lever for life.
I have one quick question. Have you always incorporated storytelling with your poets, or did one evolve before the other?
I'm way, I have often thought that I can't tell stories, so I think poetry came first, and I
Okay.
think maybe I'm a closet storyteller. I mean, they've even invited me to storytelling festivals, and I always think, you don't really know, do you?
I think you might be positive to yourself.
Is that true?
Yeah. You're a great storyteller.
Thank you.
Just draw you right in. And
Thank you.
it's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Well,
Well, we're happy to chat.
Yes.
If anybody wants to
Wait,
chat.
will you read another poem?
Um,
Take us out, friend.
oh, okay, all right, we can do that, we can do that.
It's just gonna keep doing. I told you guys,
4 hours, right?
More and more
We're just
poems.
getting started. Everybody bathroom break, and then we got number 2.
Let me just find a new one.
And we won't leave. We'll just stay right here. So
Just to move the table in front
Right?
of me, we have pillows in fact.
pillows.
All right, this one
Water.
is called The Balance. All of life balances on the tip of something as thin as the stalk of grass on which this goldfinch has landed to feed on its seeds, finally ripe at the height of summer. See how he believes, in spite of so much uncertainty, that the grass will hold his weight for as long as it can, while he feasts on his fill of what the world offers, bending the seed head toward his beak until that sudden moment when he just knows it's time to let go. We're happy to sign books. We're happy to chat with you. But thank you all so much again for coming tonight.
Thank
This is
you.
really good. Hi, everyone.
Everybody's waving by. There were many, many, many thank yous
Yeah.
from online and more questions.
Yeah.
So there was no lack of engagement.
I'm gonna bring some of these books up so that you guys can use this table.